This video is going to be all about the 2024 Ford Maverick Tremor. I'm going to go into on and off-road performance, some surprising things that I've learned about owning this truck, and really how it compares to something I have a lot more experience with, which is the Ford Maverick Hybrid. All right, let's get to it. The truck you see here is an XLT in carbonized gray metallic. Opting for the Tremor package gives you a 1-inch lift, Tremor-specific springs and shocks, a front skid plate, twin clutch rear drive unit, which allows you to lock the rear differential, 29-inch tall tires, a unique front bumper, and Tremor-specific badging with orange accents throughout. Now, this being a Tremor, it means you're only going to be able to get the 2-liter EcoBoost engine. It puts out 250 horsepower and 277 pound-feet of torque. Overall, I like this powertrain for how it feels, but there are a couple things that I don't care for. Number one, it is very loud. It's a bit rattling. It kind of sounds like an old turbo diesel engine. A little surprising for something that's so modern. The other thing that I'm having sort of a weird issue with is it has a distinct burning oil smell. I cannot find a single droplet of oil anywhere. I've actually pulled the skid plate off and investigated this heavily. I've washed the engine. I've done everything I think I can to see if there's any just leftover, oil residual somewhere, and I cannot find it. It does not appear to be burning oil either. So I'm going to keep an eye on that. If it continues to have that smell, I'll probably take it back to the dealership and see what they say. I'm hoping it just because this is a fairly new truck and maybe there's just something burning off that it's not obvious to see. Beyond that, it's very powerful feeling. It feels pretty fast, much faster than the hybrid platform, I will tell you that. In terms of real-world fuel economy numbers, I'm actually getting much better than the EPA rating. I'm averaging 22 city and 27 on the highway, which I believe their highway estimate was right at 24. If you can drive this thing easier and actually use the auto stop start feature, it definitely helps. Now, a few notes about the transmission. So all 2-liter EcoBoost Mavericks come with an 8-speed transmission. I really like this 8-speed. It has a 4.69 to 1 first gear ratio, so it feels very strong coming off of the line, and for the light off-roading that this truck is capable of, it's going to help a lot in those situations where you're putting a lot of force and resistance against the tires. Something that's specific for the Tremor is that it does have a final drive ratio of 3.8 to 1. That's meant to compensate for this taller 29-inch tall tire, and it does a pretty good job at doing that. In terms of overall power feel between the engine and transmission, I think it's absolutely adequate. It definitely feels much more powerful and sprightly compared to the hybrid. And I think they did a good job with the sort of transmission algorithm. It doesn't seem like it's shifting around too much. It never feels overly clunky. So I'm a big fan of that. I do wish I could manually control the transmission in some way. I think that would be really helpful, especially for off-roading. But in general, it keeps overdrive gears on the highway without an issue. And I still don't love the little dial knob down here, but you really get used to it. One thing I do want to point out, something that often gets confused with the hybrid and Maverick sort of regular gas trucks, is the CVT behind the hybrid is not a regular CVT. It's actually an eCVT, and it's designed and engineered completely different than your conventional band style CVT. It feels much different. It's a much more, in my opinion, reliable gear style CVT and works very well. So don't let that completely send you away from the hybrid platform if you think, oh man, it's just another terrible CVT transmission, because it's not. Now, I do want to talk quickly about the tires and wheels. I really like this wheel. I think it's the best looking Maverick wheel. I like the orange call out for the valve stem. I think just in general the Tremor package is very tastefully done with where it has its orange accents and things like that. Now, from the factory, you get a 235/65 R17. I swapped out the original tires for this. It's a Nitto Nomad Grappler. I really like this tire. I've had them in the past. It's a very light tire. It's actually designed for these sort of lightweight platforms. It is a 3-peak rated all-terrain, and in my experience, it's been really one of the better suited tires for this platform, just based off the fact it's not very heavy and it doesn't impact your ride quality. I was very, very much so on the fence with if I wanted to go with a factory replacement size. I believe I could probably squeeze a 31-inch tall tire on this thing with minimal rubbing, and I still might do it. I just want to make sure I can keep this stock wheel if I go down that road. So that'll probably be something for a future video. Now, one of the things about the Tremor, it only has a 1,200-pound payload, so it's going to be much less than the other hybrids and the other 2-liter trucks. I don't really need to haul a whole lot with this thing. Typically, I'll just have my dirt bike on a hitch carrier in the back so I can put all my other moto gear in the back, and it handles that weight perfectly fine. The bed, obviously, it's a small bed, but I think it's very usable, especially for day-to-day stuff. If you are thinking about towing, the 2-liter 8-speed, much better combo, I feel like, overall. I have towed with the Ford Maverick Hybrid, and I'm not a big fan of it. It feels like you're getting pushed around a little bit. You really need to have a very light trailer if you're going to be doing any type of towing. Really, with any of these trucks, you need trailer brakes, but if I had to pick between the Ford Maverick with the 2-liter or the hybrid in terms of towing, I would much rather have the 2-liter for sure. Now, Ford did some very smart things to make this Tremor package more capable off-road. One of the biggest being it changed the front clip of the truck at the base here of this bumper, so it gives you 30 degrees of approach angle. This makes it much more usable on the trail. You obviously have these exposed tow hooks. Now, when I say on the trail, we'll get into just how capable this thing is off-road, or at least my experience, but it's worth noting that this truck has 9.4 inches of ground clearance. To put that in perspective and kind of give you something to compare it to, a 2024 base Wrangler only has 9.7 inches of ground clearance. So at 9.4 inches, you're not much further behind. Now, I'm not saying this truck is as capable as a stock Jeep Wrangler, but what I am saying is they did a good job of making sure you have real ground clearance, so when you're getting on those sort of rougher roads, rougher back roads, you've got enough clearance that you're not just dragging the underbelly of this thing fairly consistently. Now, it is also nice to note that underneath you do have a full skid plate for everything that's really vulnerable. So your engine, transmission, and even what is not really a transfer case, but it is what's transferring power all the way to the rear differential. Instead of having a conventional transfer case in the middle of the vehicle, it sits at the front, and whenever that clutch pack gets locked up, the power goes all the way through a drive line that runs the length of the truck to that rear differential. So the Maverick has what's called an intelligent all-wheel drive system, and it's pretty interesting to watch it work. Driving down the road, you can see that it primarily favors front-wheel drive, but as soon as you get on the gas, especially going around a turn, you will see that it will engage those rear wheels very seamlessly. And even off-road, you can see this thing work in real time, and it's pretty seamless. It's actually very impressive how the system works in general. Now, in intelligent all-wheel drive, in normal mode, you can still lock that clutch pack so you can send power to the rear axle, and it works very well. So if you're just going down, let's say, a gravel back road or just a little muddy back road, something that's, let's say, light wheeling, this works perfectly fine. You'll be able to move through the gears, and you can move pretty quickly off-road. Now, if you're going to be really challenging this truck off-road, you're going to want to go into your drive modes and scroll over until you get to mud and ruts. I have found this is the most effective drive mode anytime you're putting the truck in a situation where you need some extra low-end grunt to make sure that it can power through something. You'll see when you go into this mode, it automatically locks that clutch pack, so you are sending power to the rear axle, and it turns off your traction control. Both things you definitely want. Now, if you need extra, traction, you click one button and you can get the rear locker to engage as well. Currently, the truck is off, so you're not going to see that icon light up. But whenever it is yellow, that's going to indicate that both rear tires are going to be pulling, and this is going to be your absolute best off-road mode for when you need that extra, push to get out. Now, I do want to mention that this also has a sand mode that's right after mud and ruts, and in my experience, I don't prefer this at all. I've actually put the truck in sand quite a few times, and I don't feel like this helps as much as mud and ruts. You can see in this video here, I basically tried 3 different drive modes. I tried normal with traction control off. I tried sand, and then I tried mud and ruts, and ultimately the mud ruts one gave me the power and the ability to essentially get out of this high-angled, very sandy situation. Now, if you're going to be doing light off-roading with this truck, I will tell you that it works surprisingly well. The combination of these Nittos, they're really good all-terrain. They clear out very well. I've been really impressed. It's got good ground clearance. It does have basically a rear locker, but I will tell you that it does not take much to lift one of the tires off of the ground. It doesn't have a ton of suspension articulation. It doesn't have a ton of suspension travel. I think you could go a little bit taller with a lift and a little bit more of aggressive tire, but you're really going to cut into your overall drivability and power when doing that. So I don't know if it's really worth it. For the light off-roading that I think most people are going to do with this truck, I think this works fantastic. So I want to talk about on-road driving. There's a few things that I think are worth mentioning that I haven't really seen a lot of people address in reviews. First off, let's talk about the steering, specifically how heavy it is. It should not be this heavy. For a truck this small and compact, I feel like this steering could be a lot lighter and a little bit more responsive. This isn't a sports car. I don't need, a lot of heavy feedback on the road. It's a little truck meant to be a great little daily driver. I think they could have done a better job with the steering calibration, especially when you're going like interstate speed. So anything over 60 miles an hour, 65, 70, the steering, it's like all your electronic assist is gone and the steering just feels really heavy. I don't know why they did that, but I do not like how this thing feels and how heavy the steering gets on the highway. It's livable in town, not super obnoxious, but it could be a lot better. Ride quality, moving from a hybrid Maverick to this, you can definitely tell this is firmer, but it doesn't ride stiff. It's not like getting in a body on frame truck where it feels like it's meant to haul a heavy load. It's not. It feels like it looks. It's kind of light and nimble. You don't get a lot of chatter from the road. It's a really nice driving truck in that regard. I will say that handling wise, I feel like this handles better than a hybrid. You get a little bit less body roll, a little less nosedive, but the brakes, acceleration, I think everything is really on point with it. Sure, you could always probably get a little bit more power out of this thing, and I don't think it would be that hard with an aftermarket tune to make this thing put down some more power, but I don't really feel like it needs it. It does really well, especially for daily driving. It's fine. If you want to get on it, the transmission does a great job at shifting quickly to get you down in a better gear, so you've got more passing power. Compared to the Ford Maverick Hybrid, this thing's like a rocket ship. The Ford Maverick Hybrid on the interstate trying to pass is terrible. This is phenomenal compared to that, but overall, my only real complaint is that the steering's heavy. Air conditioning blows nice. The kids in the back get plenty of AC. It fits 2 car seats fine. You can have someone in the back. You can actually fit 3 people in the back, and it's not terribly squeezed. You wouldn't want to go to California on it, but it's not that bad. So for the most part, I think Ford did a really good job, especially with the Tremor, to give you that little extra ride height, put a bigger tire on here, but not make it feel like, it's a heavy duty truck. I think they understand that the consumer for this isn't someone that needs, desert capability and rock crawling capability. It's more meant to be a comfortable daily driver, and if you're going to hit some snow or sand, maybe occasional like muddy back road, this thing can be capable for that. But in terms of everyday driving, it's fine. I just think that, and I hope maybe we'll see some sort of like calibration update to get this steering just a little bit lighter. It doesn't need to be twitchy, but it needs to be just a little bit lighter. So that's my take on the Ford Maverick platform. I think it's a very good truck. I'm glad these things exist, and I think you're finally getting where these things are getting on the lots and they're not being ridiculous over MSRP. This truck was purchased at MSRP, was no markup on it, so I'm happy about that. I think it's a good option. If you're curious or got any questions, just drop them right in the comments. If you want to see some stuff I'm working on behind the scenes, you can check me out on all social platforms at Ali Mansour Editor. And until next time, I appreciate you guys watching, and I hope to see you on the trail. Take care.